Hi everyone. Welcome or welcome back to another episode of In the Rough with Miyaki. I hope that you had an exciting week. I don't know, I always have one kind of tone whenever I'm saying In the Rough with Miyaki. I don't know why it sounds weird to me, but anyways, welcome or welcome back. It's really nice to be seated on this couch once again. I always look forward to doing this like every single week. You know that thing they talk about having fulfillment in the thing that you do, whether or not it seems like it's working. That's exactly how I feel every time I sit on this couch. I feel very fulfilled, very, in place. That's the word, in place. I feel very in place. I'm just always excited to be here doing this. And, by God's grace, everything that is supposed to be, um, everything that this community is supposed to be, is going to be, with time, right? We are blooming with grace. Yes, this bloom with grace just came to me yesterday. So yeah, we are blooming with grace. That's like my new motto, bloom with grace. But yeah, we are blooming with grace. I hope that you are blooming with grace. I hope that you've had, the best week, right? I've had an amazing week, ups and downs here and there, but I mean, such is life. That is life, you know. So yes, I'm excited for the weekend. It's looking good. I hope yours is looking good. Um, yeah, basically, that's just it with all the greetings and all of that. I'm a little bit not shaky, not nervous, but um, what I have to talk about today just makes me not the word is not edgy. I don't know what the word is, but it just makes me a little, it's not something I really like to talk about because of the context of it. But for the sake of being, open and, just trying to connect with you, of course, we're going to have the conversation. And um, it's not really a story time, but it's like a story time. It's like a story time, actually, because I'm going to be telling a few stories, of course. But yeah, let me just get into it so I don't just elongate all of this. But basically, I want to talk about how grief changed me. How losing my mom, yeah, changed me. Is a lot of things. Is a lot of things, and of course there are negatives. Grief, loss is not a good thing. Honestly, it's not a good thing, and I don't want to say it gets easier. I don't think it gets easier. Whoever says it gets easier, I feel like that person is lying to you. It does not get easier. And it does not get easier because when you lose someone, um at the point where you lose that person, the memories that you have stops, like at that point, right? And the older you get, the more those memories fade. So what makes you continue to cherish the people that are in your life? And that's why people lose friendships, right? Because with time, if you stop communicating with people, you stop hanging out with people, you stop relating with people, with time the memories of these people will fade from your mind, right? So, and then it's easier when these people are here because then you can rekindle, that thing that you guys had. But when the person is not there, then it gets harder because you're struggling to hold on to, the pieces of memories you have, especially when those things are not documented, there are no pictures, there are no videos. And honestly, that's why now I'm a sucker for taking pictures, taking videos, and just creating memories as much as you can so that you can have something that you can look back on and refresh your memory. But yes, to cut the long story short, I want to talk about how grief changed me. My mom passed in 2016. March 30th made it 8 years since my mom passed. And in these 8 years, I've seen myself evolve. I mean, of course, I should grow, right? But I've seen myself evolve in ways that may not have been possible if she was here. That was very hard to say. That was very hard to say. Um, I've seen myself evolve in ways that wouldn't have been possible if she was here. Probably, probably. My mom was such a strong woman, so strong, you know. She was a sucker for growth as well. Like she will push you to grow, right, and everything. But you know how, everyone has their own principles, their own values, and all of those things that they stuck with. That was it. And um, when my mom gave birth to me, she had, you know, transitioned into, Deeper Life Bible Church and everything. So there were a lot of strictness concerning, dressing, concerning how to, express yourself and all of that. But from a very young age, I've always wanted to explore. I've always been the person that wanted to explore, that wanted to, just be out there and all of that. I'm reserved, but not in that sense, right? Like I'm reserved in the sense that I don't really, I'm not loud and all of that. But when it comes to expressing myself in my dressing, in the things that I would like to do and all of that, I've always been that person and stuff. So, when my mom died in 2016, I was still in high school. So, of course, there were a lot of limitations. There were lots of limitations that I had as a child. There were things I could not do because I was still under authority. I'm still under authority, right? I'm not married. I might be a little bit independent, but I'm not very much independent yet. So, yes, I'm still under authority. But then, it's different when you're an adult and then when you're like a teenager, like in your early teens, right? Just they're just that different and all of that. And my mom passed in 2016, and I went to a particular high school that also did not allow me explore, you know, as much as I would have loved to. Now, when I talk about exploring, I'm not talking about boys, I'm not talking about drugs or whatever. No, I'm just talking about, you know, being in touch with, should I say, my inner person? I don't know how that sounds, but just doing things I would love to do, exploring with, outfits, with hairstyles and all of the stuff. Those were the things I was really curious about those things. I've always been a curious child, and I used to ask myself, but why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Why do they say that doing this is a sin? Why do they say doing that is a sin? I've always been a curious child. And then my mom passed, and she passed at the time I was leaving high school, right? So at the time she passed, we were preparing for WAEC. We're going to start WAEC, I think, on the 6th or 7th of April, and she passed on the 30th. So I already knew that once I left high school, I was going to want to explore. But then that fear and respect that you have for your parents and all of that. So at the time she passed and everything and I finished, I became scared. I wanted to, I don't know if the word is appease her spirits, right? I wanted to be the kind of child that she wanted me to be, while I was here. Now we're having certain issues because I would go and put this transparent nail polish, nail hard now, go and put it on my toes and everything. I'll make wool, I needed to braid my hair and all those stuff. So we're having some issues already with these things, right? So when she passed, I was like, oh my God, my mom has passed now. I have to do what is going to please her, what's going to make her happy, what's going to make her spirit happy. So she doesn't look down and she's disappointed. Now, it wasn't the question of if doing these things were wrong or right anymore. It was now the question of, you know, not disappointing my mother's spirit. That should be the word, spirit and all. And I had I had known God already, right? So, and I was really curious. These were things that, why was it that the more I was pushing these things away, the more I wanted to do them, right? And I went into praying and studying the word. That was when I knew I could read the Bible. I read the Bible back, like cover to cover, Genesis to Revelation, like three whole times, and I was looking for answers, And I used to say something. I used to tell people, I said that God told me to start using jewelries. God told me it was okay to use jewelries. It was okay to do these things, but I wasn't sure it was God. And it sounds a bit controversial because what was God's business? Why will he come and tell you? But yeah, it's God's business. It's God's business, you know. But it sounded a bit controversial, and I didn't really like telling people because they'll not look at me like. But that's actually how I felt about myself as well when I started doing these things. Like, am I doing it because there is, and that was the thing, and that's also the thing. Most times the devil uses the voice of our desires to speak to us, and we'll think that it is God speaking, right? So I like this guy who is tall, dark, and handsome. This is who I like. And I'm saying, is this the right person for me? No, he's not the right person for me. But he's something I like, right? So when I go to God to pray about, you know, going into a relationship or into a marriage, right? Because the desire is in my heart to have this kind of person, the devil will use the voice of your desire to speak to you and make it look like it is God speaking to you. And that's why discernment is very important. And at the time, to be honest, I was just really growing. I was just learning things. The whole discernment thing was not, I don't want to say it was not a big deal to me, but it was not something that I was, you know, very much knowledgeable about. So, but I just knew that I did not want to do this thing and say, oh, it is God that said I should do it, when it is what I want to do. So I prayed to God so much to kill the voice of my desires, like to kill the voice of my desires so much so that I don't desire to do these things, right? I don't desire it. I don't want to have the desire, and I want to know what God is really, really, really saying. Right. And I was praying one of those days and I had an encounter, and I don't want to, I mean, it's a story time, and I want to go into all of those details, but I had like an encounter three times where I believe that the Lord came to me in the form of my mother, three different times, right? And those three different encounters were a progression. So I had the first encounter, it stops at a particular point. The next time I had the encounter, we got to that point and it progressed, because after each encounter, I was, not that I was more confused, but I had a new question, right? So it was like, okay, let us take it a little further to clear your doubt about this confusion you have. So I had that encounter three different times. And after the third encounter, every fear in my heart that I felt vanished. And now I was not only scared of my mother, I was scared of my siblings being disappointed, and I was scared of my father also being disappointed, but I realized that I didn't really care anymore about what these people were going to say. And I believe that that was the first level of growth. And that was the first thing that God, did in my life, like to kill that. And sometimes it might seem like a bad thing, my sister called me one time and she was talking and she was like, Miyaki, you have this, I don't care, I don't care mentality. I don't care. Whatever anybody wants to say, you should say. And it's not a good thing. I get it. It might come as not a good thing, but I have looked at my life over this span of these 8 years, and I have seen that that is the thing that has kept me going, that has helped me be the person that I am now, and has helped me to continue, going on the path that I've chosen. Now, I've made a lot of decisions in my life that are very tough, especially in this last 1 year. I've made really tough decisions that I knew that I wouldn't have been able to make if I did not have that mental, or if God had not built that thing in me, that thing to be able to look past what people are saying. And it was really bad because people were saying a lot of things like, oh, she was waiting for her mother to die for her to start using jewelry, and all of those stuff. And it was really crazy, but it didn't get to me. I didn't for once sit down to cry and all of that. And this was one of the reasons God had told me that the people he's sending me to will not listen to me if I go looking the way I was looking. Yeah, that was also very hard to say because it also sounds quite controversial, but that was it. God had categorically told me, He said, the people I'm sending you to, they won't listen to you. When they look at you from your head to your toe, they will not listen to you, because of the way you're looking. You have to look a particular way. You have to look a certain way. And there's a thin line, and that's why it's very important that you know for sure that the voice that is speaking to you is the voice of God, right? There are things that are very difficult for us to understand as human beings. There are instructions that God will give you that you will feel like, God, are you sure it is you that is really talking? You know? And it was quite difficult for me to accept that God has said that to me, you know. But then things began to happen in my life. I began to meet certain people who, were knowledgeable in God enough. And when I heard them talk, and when I hear them talk about their experiences, the things that God had told them and all of that, it then sharpens and then, you know, yeah, it sharpens my belief that yes, God actually did speak to me, and I'm not doing this just because. And I've seen how much this whole thing has, refined me, how much it has changed me, how much confidence I've had. It has boosted my confidence. I don't want to say I was not a confident child because I don't want to look like, oh, I was abused or I was being, shut down or something. But I wasn't really confident at the time. There were places I felt like I didn't belong because I was looking a certain type of way. And it made me look down on myself. It made me feel like I didn't fit into this particular class of people, you know. And so when God tells you to do something, and when you're sure that is God and you are doing that thing in line with this is what God has said, and I want to honor this thing that God has said, God is going to give you the strength, God is going to give you the courage, He's going to give you the fortitude to bear whatever whatever discomforts will come with having to work with that decision. And this might seem like a very trivial thing, but this is something that has shaped my life over the past 8 years. I am a very confident person. I'm very confident in the place that I am now because I listened and because I tuned into that. And I mean, it made it easier that my mom was not here for me to be able to be the person that I am. It made it easier because if she was here, I would have been so scared. I would have been so scared to do what I had to do. I would have been so scared of disappointing her. I would have been so scared of making her. And it took a lot for God to heal my heart, regarding that whole disappointment and everything, like, oh, appeasing her spirits, doing this and doing that. It took time for me to heal from that because people didn't have to say it. initially I'd also felt like it. I'd also felt like am I doing this because my mom is not here? Am I having the courage to do this because she's not here? Right? But God was like, what about your father? What about your siblings? They're here, you know. But like I said, this is quite a difficult conversation for me to have because it may seem like I'm saying, oh, it was a good thing that my mom had passed or that my mom is not here. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing that my mom is not here. It is difficult to live with. I cry every other day thinking about my mother and thinking about how much I would have learned, with her being here. I do. But I have grown so much and learned so much. I've not really had the privilege of having mother figures since my mom passed. My sister is the closest mother figure to me. Like, I mean, we're just two girls. She's my older sister. She's the closest mother figure to me. And then my mom's twin sister, right? So I'd of course expected that my aunties and all the mommies around me will sort of step in to be like mother figures, but then you're wrong. And of course, you begin to uncover certain things, you begin to see certain things when I have lived with judgment since, that time. I have lived with judgment and judgments from people that are closest to me, right? Of course, yes, people that are supposed to be like figures, that mother figure, right? I've lived with judgment. I can't make a mistake. I can't do anything. I can't. Now, I didn't really have the privilege of staying with my mom so much. In growing up in primary school, most times during long vacations, we sort of went somewhere to have long vacations and all of that. My mom worked in the banking sector, so yes, she most of her time went there. I enjoyed my mother, right? But then I went to boarding school, and then it was when I was finishing that she had died. The best time I would have enjoyed my mom was actually after high school because then, I'll be in university. I'll be able to call her anytime. I'll be able to go home anytime. We'll always, we're going to have time together. But unfortunately, that was when she passed. And that was the time of my life when I needed a mother figure, needed to talk about boys, needed to talk about a lot of things. But I had to learn most of these things by myself. And I just realized how strong, I just realized how strong I am, how strong, I was. And it's true what they say that if you train up a child in the way he should go, he will not depart from it because the teachings that my mom, taught me those from the things that I remember and all of that, those things kept me going, those principles, those small beatings here and there, those small, this is not good, this is, all those things, those small values, those little values and everything, those things kept me going. Um, I didn't I didn't have anybody to talk to me about boys as such. Yeah, my sister did from time to time, but not as much as a mother would, because at the time, she was also just getting in. She had not gotten married yet. She was also just about to get married and stuff. So there were a lot of, those things, a lot of things that I had to learn. And also, right now, when people ask me why I act so independent, why I, just like being by myself and all of them, like, I had to learn by myself not to do certain things, not to be in certain places, not to, and all of that. I believe so much that I'm one of the people that I can say, well, I was taught of the Lord. Yeah, my parents taught me, of course, but there are lots of things that I was actually being taught, you know, of the Lord. And most of these things are quite controversial that people don't understand. Like I said, it's difficult that I'm telling people, oh, God said I should wear trousers and God said I should use jewelries. Why would God say you should wear trousers and use jewelries? You know? And when I started using jewelries, after a couple years, let's say 3 years after I started using jewelries, I started wearing anklets. And God didn't tell me anything about that. God didn't tell me anything about anklets. you know. I had a lot of people say a lot of things. People will think you're a lesbian, blah blah blah, all of those stuff. And just fast forward to a couple months ago, the Lord told me to remove my anklets because I had gotten to a place where using anklets was not going to allow me access the people that He wanted me to access. And so I had to take it off. Now, not because people said, not because, and I just believe that that is why it is a problem. Yes, I'm going to say it's a problem. That's why it's a problem when people go around judging other people for the things that they do. Now, I'm not talking about things that are outright sins. I'm talking about things that are just, I don't want to say anything to contradict myself, but things like wearing earrings and wearing all of that. Yeah, there are people that will say you don't wear earrings because it's a sin, right? But who told you wearing earrings is a sin? Do you get? There are people who are not in Deeper Life or in Mountain of Fire or in Chosen that do not wear jewelries because God had categorically told them not to wear jewelries, right? So I don't believe that you should go around telling people, oh, if you're wearing jewelry, you're going to hell. You're going to. I believe that God has a specific message for everybody. I believe that God has a specific assignment for everybody. And there are places that you cannot access if you're doing certain things. I have a friend that really wants to pierce her nose. She wants to pierce her nose so bad. But every time the Holy Spirit tells her, you cannot pierce your nose because the people I'm sending you to, they will not listen to you if they see you with a nose piercing. Piercing nose is not sin, right? It's not a problem. It's not. And of course, he told her, I'm not saying it's a sin. I'm not saying if you pierce your nose, you're going to go to hell. But what I'm saying is that the people I'm sending you to will not listen to you if you pierce your nose. There are people that God will send you to that will not listen to you if you go looking the way you're looking. And honestly, the way I was brought up, of course, the way I, used to dress and all of that, it's like I said earlier, it did something to my confidence, right? There were certain group of people I couldn't talk to. There were people I could not mingle with, not because I felt like they were bigger than me but because I felt like I could not just fit in to that category especially because of the way I was looking, right? And I'm sending you to somewhere. Now, I'm not saying that people who are in top places that are not, of course, there are people who are in top places that used to, they dress very plainly and they do all of those things. And that is why I'm hitting on the fact that God has different paths for different people, right? Now, there are things that God has worked on those people and God has decided to work on those people, that has allowed for them to work in the assignment and carry out the assignment that God has for them. But now what about me? What kind of assignment does God have for me? What kind of instruction does He have for me to follow? And what do I have to do? What do I have to bear to be able to carry the weight of that instruction, to be able to walk in it, right? So that was a question I had to answer. And at a very young age, to be honest, at a time when I was learning a lot of things, and it was difficult because these people would look at me in my face and tell me things about how I was waiting for my mom to die to begin to do certain things. And I'm looking at them and I want to say, but I don't even think about it like that. I've always been like this. I've always been this person, but it's just taking expression now because I am at that point where, God is already telling me, okay, you have grown. You've gotten to the point where you need to start learning things. And these are the things that I want you to do. These are the hurdles that I want you to jump. These are the things you have to fight. So imagine fighting those kind of oppositions at that time. At a point, I even stopped because it became too much. I stopped. And God said, Auntie, who are you deceiving? You cannot be deceiving anybody. Go back and do what you have to do. And like I said, sometimes it seems like it's a negative thing because by the time you've built that kind of, what's the word? You've built that kind of character, that kind of, you can sit down and where you are right there, people are saying things and you can hear them, but you have built a resistance, that kind of resistance, right? And that was something that God had to hammer and make me learn, that you need a particular kind of resistance to get to. As I'm talking to you right now, I think I'm currently going through one of the hardest phases of my adult life. I'm currently going through one of the hardest phases of my adult life. And most times I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to think about it so much, because I believe that these are parts of life, these are parts of the things that will add up, and make your journey worth it. But I'm going through one of the hardest phases of my adult life, and if not for the resistance that I was able to build, let's say in the first 5 years of my mom's passing, if not for the kind of resistance I was able to build, I wouldn't have been able to bear some of the things that I've had to bear in this past year, and that I'm still having to bear currently. A lot of times, you're going to question yourself. A lot of times, you're going to question your choices. A lot of times, you're going to question if you actually heard God, or if you just wanted to prove a point. Yeah. If you actually heard God, or if you were just trying to prove a point. Sometimes I ask myself, I know that I heard God. I'm positive that I heard God. But sometimes I'm like, did I come to this place that I am because I want to prove to certain people that I can do certain things? And I was having a conversation with someone. And the devil is so wicked and so cunning, and he's going to raise men that will make you feel that way. In as much as God is raising men to support you, the devil is raising men that will oppose you. They will come as friends, just like Job's friends. I read the book of Job. I think I finished last week, and I want to go back to read it again, because I learned a lot of lessons from that book. I want to go back to read it again. Just like Job's friends. They will come as friends, but they will say things that will make you question your. And I was having this conversation with a particular somebody, and I just mentioned about, is if you know me, it's difficult for me to talk without putting God inside. Especially when I'm talking about choices and decisions that I've made. I've tried my best. I've made a conscious effort to make sure that I don't make major decisions in my life without involving God in them. And so I say that I'm sure I heard God, and God told me this. This is what God told me to do. And that's a good thing about listening to God. By the time you begin to follow what God has told you, initially it won't look like God told you to do it. It won't look like it was God. You are going to struggle a lot. Not because God is wicked, but because He's teaching you something. He's pruning you, He's developing, He's building your resistance, of course. So I was having this conversation, and the person said, if you ask me, I'm going to say that you're just trying to prove a point to your family. You're just trying to prove a point to people around you and all of that. Oh, you're running away from something. You're running away from this. You're running away from that. And it got to a point that what the person was saying, because I felt the need to defend that narrative, because while the person was talking, I realized that he cannot be the only person having this kind of thoughts towards the decisions that I've made. It dawned on me that it's possible that even my family feels this way about me. It's possible that the people I'm staying with, that my friends, they feel this way about me. And so I felt the need to defend that narrative, to go into an argument, and all of that. I started feeling this holy anger. How dare you question, God's what. But it was not only anger, I was genuinely upset. I was genuinely upset. It was human. It was human upset, and I was genuinely upset. And um, I wanted to defend myself so badly. And the Holy Spirit said, keep quiet. Keep quiet. There's no need. There's no need. By the time you begin to defend this and you begin to do things that you should not do, trying to prove a point. And that's why I say there's a thin line between doing what God has said and trying to prove a point. Sometimes it will look like you're trying to prove a point. It will look like you're trying to prove a point. But I'm a very young girl. I'm a very young girl. And most of the people that I have in my corner are older people. Most of my friends are older people. And I have conversations with them and they're like, you don't sound your age at all. I'm like, well, that's what happens when you have to teach yourself a lot of things, you know. And I don't know why. So most times in the sight of my family, I seem like someone who doesn't have sense. I seem like someone who doesn't have sense. And in the sight of other people, I look like someone who has sense. You know, the irony of life. But yeah, that's just that's just the whole gist. But what I just really wanted to say in today's episode, or the point of all of these stories and stories and stories, is that loss, grief has built something in me that probably wouldn't have been built if I didn't lose and if I didn't grieve. I would have had it easy. Now, I'm not saying that God wanted me to have it tough. That's why He took my mother. No, nah, I'm never going to make that kind of statement in my life. God would have found a way. He would have found a way. If my mother was still here, He would have found a way to make me be the person that He wanted me to be, that He wants me to be. He would have. Surprisingly, he might have even used her directly, you know. But I'm just saying that I had to I had to go through the hard, tough path to be this person and to even dare to be a bigger person, to have a bigger vision, to see bigger pictures, to be able to challenge impossibilities, to be able to challenge impossibilities. So these days, now, I don't see the need to defend anything. I was asking God the other day, I said, I'd been feeling very good. Something good is coming, something huge, something good is coming. And once that joy came, the devil began to attack me. And a lot of things started coming up, rumors and stuff. And I asked God, I'm like, why? Why do I have to deal with this thing all the time? He said, if you're not dealing with these things, then you have to question your feeling. You have to question what you think you heard, what you think you felt in my presence. You have to question it if you actually did feel it. Because sorry to use this language, if shit no dey smell, you no go see fly for there, right? If something is not attracting flies, you will not see flies there. So something might be looking good, you know, not good because I'm talking about flies. Something might be, okay, let me use ants and sugar now. You can see something that looks sweet, but there are no ants there. Something has to attract the ant. It has to be sweet to attract the ants, right? Right. So always, 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 always. Um, I've learned a lot of things. I've learned a lot of things. Just because I don't want this to just go overboard or become too long. I feel like the next time I'm going to have this conversation, I'm going to have it with someone who has had like a similar experience as me, and then we'll have conversations and see how we, share, these feelings and everything, and also just give you more perspective and all of that, just more options to hear, like more people to hear from and all of that. Sometimes I don't really like to talk about these things, so it doesn't look like, oh, this is just something that is just peculiar to me and I'm just talking from my head. I've met people that have said things that I've experienced and I'm like, oh, I'm not running mad, so yeah. um I hope that everything that I've said today makes sense to you. I hope that you enjoyed my story that is not so much of a story and stuff and stuff. Um, but yeah, that's that for today, guys. I hope that you've at least learned something, right? If you have any questions, if you have any opinions, any experiences that you'd like to share, you know that the DMs are open, the comment section is open, and all of that. Please, I would really like your support, on this podcast. We have to build this community. Share our episodes, share our podcast episodes, like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on any of our streaming platforms, leave a review, follow us on these platforms and share with your friends and with your family. We truly do appreciate all your efforts and all your show of love. We don't take it for granted. Thank you so much for staying with us on today's episode. See you soon. Bye.